All right, thank you very much for this opportunity. We all have to change or adapt our teaching from classroom-based to online teaching, some more than others. I hope that I will give you some tools during this presentation to make this transition easier and more structured, where the focus of your designing is on the learning of the student. So I'm going to start with a bit of theory as background before getting to the practical part of the presentation. Technology is widely available and used by educators around the world. So the focus initially was on digital technologies and how it improved the reach of learning, thinking of places where traditional teaching cannot go. More recently, learning design became important, where the focus is on how digital technologies are used to improve the quality of learning. So a lot of technologies are available to students, and attention has moved to the enabling of students and letting them to do their own thing to learn, because they do have access to this web, which is huge, with a lot of resources available to them. But if we bring the attention back to the lecturer, the question arises, where does this leave the lecturer? What is the role of the lecturer in all of this? Now, Diane Laurillard from the London Knowledge Lab at the Institute of Education regards the role of the lecturer as absolutely critical and see us as the key to innovation, to improve teaching and learning, with the goal to enable every learner to achieve their learning potential. Would it not be great if this can be the motivation of every lecturer at Stellenbosch University? Diane therefore looks at teaching as a design science, as the means by which lecturers use digital technologies to investigate, experiment, and improve teaching and learning. So we as lecturers need to challenge the technologies to enhance all aspects of the learning process. All of this inspired her to develop the conversational framework. So the conversational framework talks about teaching and learning as an iterative cycle between the teachers and the learners, the learning environment and the learner, between peers and learners, and their peers, and looking at what the learners are doing. So all of these continuous cycles are what enables the learner to make the connection between concepts and practice. And to me, this is very important to develop critical thinking skills. The point of this framework is to embrace everything we understand about teaching and learning and to challenge the technology. So for each type of technology that you want to use, you should be able to ask the question, how much does this technology do for the learners? What is the point of using a podcast, a webinar, or a wiki? All of these technologies are great, but we have to ask ourselves, what do they really contribute to the learning of the student? So Laurillard incorporated learning technologies in her thinking and provides a balanced approach to the integration of technology in teaching with an emphasis on having dialogue in the student learning process. So the idea of ways of learning was born, and they are acquisition, or also known as read, watch, listen, inquiry, production, practice, discussion, and collaboration. Ideally, lecturers have to design learning activities using technology that speak to all the different learning types, which speaks directly to the student's online experience and learning processes. So while we are creating this online learning space, we can just as well make it a rich and enjoyable environment for our students. I'm now going to play a very short video in which Diane herself briefly explains the 6 ways of learning.
If the learner is listening to the teacher, or watching a video or demo, or reading a book or website, that's learning through acquisition. It's very common in education. It creates the opportunity for the learner to develop concepts, but it doesn't require them to do anything. All the other types of learning activity do. If the learner is going to the teacher or the library or the internet to find out something, that's learning through inquiry. It's a different way of reading a book, more under the control of the learner. And they have to come up with a question, evaluate what comes back, search again. It's a more active learning process, enabling that conceptual process to keep developing. If the learner is asking questions of other learners or answering their questions, exchanging ideas, challenging each other's arguments, that's learning through discussion. Listening and responding, articulating and arguing, they're all opportunities for the concept to develop. And if the teacher sets up a learning environment with a task goal, the learner then has to generate an action, interpret the feedback, and maybe think about the relevant concept and try again to get nearer the goal. This is learning through practice. And suppose you get the students working together on a project where they have to produce a shared output, maybe a diagram or a definition or a design or report. This is learning through collaboration. It's different from discussion. Having to produce a shared output means they have to negotiate their ideas in practice until they agree. So in the process, they're challenging each other and providing peer feedback to develop the best output they can. Even more opportunities for integrating and developing concepts in practice. And finally, when students are producing something for the teacher to evaluate, that's learning through production. Again, it may be a plan, a website, a performance, a theory, an analysis, but having to produce a public presentation of what they've learned is as important as getting feedback from the teacher. Many opportunities for integrating and developing concepts in practice. Together, all 6 types of learning activity cover most of what you're ever likely to ask a student.
To illustrate Diane's point, let us use this example. You teach the online module Baking Cookies 101. You teach 2 classes, both with the same outcome. The student will be able to apply the principles in formulating sugar biscuits. In class 1, you give the online activity of 3 research articles for them to read. The question arises, are all of your students learning and engaging? The answer is no. In class 2, you decide to give them only 1 research article to read, but they also have to work on a recipe together in an online shared document. If we ask the same question, it is clear that both students in your class were now learning because the focus was not only on acquisition. Even if the main aim of this electronic activity was to enable collaboration, they also had to investigate, discuss, produce a shared document to the lecturer to be assessed. Hopefully you can see the importance that the lecturer play in the planning and designing to enable learning. We now know that lecturers are like engineers. We have to design. We know that there are different technologies available. Just think about SunLearn and all the electronic activities that we can choose from. So what tools are available to us to choose or to use technology more effective in our teaching to enable every learner to achieve their learning potential? In other words, how can we develop, as far as possible, a well-balanced module where the chosen electronic activities allow the 6 ways of learning? Through all of this planning, we obviously also have to keep the outcomes of the module in mind, so it is a lot of aspects to consider and easy to feel lost or lose inspiration. There are 2 tools to help us designing our modules. Both of them is based on the research done by Diane Laurelard. The first tool is the more traditional paper-based route, where you can use learning type cards to build the learning opportunities in your module, like a storyboard. And the second tool is the electronic way of doing it, using the free online program called the Learning Designer. I will briefly introduce the learning type cards. These cards were developed by the University College London digital education team, and I got permission from UCL to use them in my PowerPoint. The front of the card will show the learning type, as you can see on the screen. Lecturers then design or outline their module by distributing the different learning types using this postcard size cards along the timeline of the module. You can design your module building the storyboard week by week and reshuffle the cards until you are happy with the design. Once you are happy with your design, you can then turn the cards to the other side. You now have to select the learning electronic activities. You can write your own activity that is associated with that particular learning type. Planning and building your storyboard in this systematic manner will help you to ensure that you engage the different students in your class because you deliberately focused and included the different learning types. Once the learning activities are selected, one can then look for opportunities for formative and summative assessment. UCL has found that this process works very well, not only for online teaching, but also for the development of the curriculum for new programs. They call it the ABC curriculum design. So if you do this process as part of a team, it allows for rich, structured conversation and can improve everybody's design. This is just a close-up of the front and the back view of one of the cards, which is acquisition. My suggestion would be to print a few sets of each of these different cards to build your storyboard. There are lecturers that would still prefer the more traditional way of working with paper, and that is great. I'm now going to introduce the second tool, which is used online. So this brings me to the tool called the Learning Designer. It is an online tool to help teachers or lecturers design teaching and learning activities and share their learning designs with each other. This tool was developed by a team led by Diane Laurelard at the UCL Knowledge Lab, and it is free for anyone to use. It is obviously based on the 6 learning types, but it really helps you with so much more. To illustrate the use of it, I'm going to make use of a module I developed in 2017 by means of the software. I was introduced to it while participating in the blended online course at Stellenbosch University, which I highly recommend to every lecturer. I facilitated a 2-week module called Functional Foods as part of the online Masters in Food and Nutrition Security, which started in 2017. When I designed this module, I had to plan carefully, thinking about constructive alignment in terms of the outcomes, the electronic learning activities I was choosing, and the way I wanted to assess the students. Learning Designer enabled me to design this module online in an orderly and well thought out manner to give the students in the class a great online experience. The content I covered in the Functional Foods module was divided into chapters, but you can divide it into weeks as well using the program. The platform I used to deliver this was Sunlearn. The vehicle I used for content delivery or teaching was PowerPoint with pre-recorded voice notes in which I embedded many of the electronic activities. I used the 6 ways of learning to make informed decisions about the learning type I was targeting, helping me to choose relevant activities, or also known as electronic activities. So the activities were mainly chosen as formative exercises, for example, links to videos and web pages, quizzes, crossword puzzles, glossaries, and links to shared Google Docs that students had to participate in, as well as a discussion forum, which I was involved in a lot. The final summative assessment was a research-based report and video. While I was designing this module, I was particularly grateful for the Learning Designer because I struggled with a few things. I constantly asked myself, how many activities should I choose? How much time is it okay for the students to spend on all of these activities? I also like the fact that the program helped me to make sure that I keep the outcomes of the module in mind, because the learning designer invites you to specify your teaching aims and outcomes, which you can categorize according to Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives. The program then supports you in designing the teaching and learning activities that will enable learners to meet those outcomes. Using it in this way, you achieve constructive alignment, which make for a great online teaching strategy. I'm now going to play a screencast of how Learning Designer works.
I've already created a profile, so when I go to the program Learning Designer, I can only log in. And I can click on my designs. And there is the module that I created. Once you're in the program, you can do a lot of editing. You can give your module a name, a topic, the learning time, or then in our instance, the notional hours linked to that specific subject. And my subject, because it has 5 credit value, the notional hours of the students are 50 hours. Then it also gives you the design learning time. So it calculates all the times linked to all the activities that you are designing. And it gives you then that time as well. You can type in the size of the class. You can give your module a description. You can also indicate which mode of delivery was used. You can type in the aims, the outcomes of your subject. When you click on mode of delivery, you can see the different modes that you can choose from: online, blended, classroom-based, location-based, or other. So this program can be used for different modes of delivery. And the outcomes that you type in, if I want to type in a new one, this is the categories that I can select from that is also linked to Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. Each block that you see here is linked to a or called a teaching learning activity, and you can divide them into chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, or you can name them weeks, week 1, and all the learning types that you will be doing in week 1 and week 2. My specific subject, I divided into chapters, and I'm only going to use one block as an example. My first chapter was the introduction. The students had to watch a short animated video to set the scene for the functional foods module. So if you click here, it gives you the different learning types, and obviously it will fall under read, watch, listen. The video was 4.26 minutes long. The instructor, the teacher, I did not have to be present for them to do this activity. So you can either click teacher present or indicate if the teacher does not need to be present. Here you can click whether it's online or not. This activity was online, it was not face-to-face. And then you, for yourself, you can also link that specific resource. And I have included the link of that video then in my Learning Designer program. So I've built this chapter. I also had to listen to pre-recorded PowerPoint slides, which took 40 minutes. And then you go through the entire exercise again. I also embedded links, videos, and discussion assignments at the end of the PowerPoint. So I've also added practice because they had to do the quiz. It was sort of a revision on the PowerPoint slides, and only if you get 100%, the PowerPoint slides would then finish, because the quiz was set in the middle of the PowerPoint presentation. And then I also added the discussion forum. The students had to take part in an online discussion linked to some of the questions I've asked in the PowerPoint slides, and that discussion was 30 minutes. And then I've also added a lot of reading material for the students, and they had to go through the reading material and choose the ones that were most relevant, linked specifically to the assignment that they had to do at the end of the module. So you can see I've built my entire module then in the different chapters, and in each chapter or teaching learning activity, I linked specific activities or learning types. And as you build your module, the program automatically gives you the analysis or the breakdown of all the learning types that you include. In my specific module, production was 39%, acquisition 17%, collaboration 1%, discussion 2%, inquiry 37%, and practice 4%. And I felt quite comfortable with the way that this design looked at the end, because it is an MSc module and the students have to produce new knowledge, look at different articles, choose the correct ones, and use that then in the end to write a research-based assignment or report.
Okay, this is just a brief look at my Functional Foods Learning Designer page quickly again. My part of the module was 5 credits, which calculates to about 50 notional hours. Using this software, I could exactly calculate the amount of time while designing the learning activities. You can see that the learning time they have and the designed learning time is almost the same, which means that the students was not overloaded with all of these things I included. Through using the learning designer, it helped me to design my module in such a way that I covered the 6 ways of learning. Production was the most. For me, it was important because it is an MSc module and you have to add to the knowledge base. So I think it is also important that for each year level, the analysis probably will look a bit different, but you will, because you expect much more from a master student, and it's vastly different than what you would expect from a first year student, for instance. I have given them a survey where the students had to give me a little bit of feedback on the development or the design of the module. And I was interested in the quality of interaction between myself and them. And the only reference I had was some of the other modules. So I had to ask them, how was your experience in this particular module? And they all said that it increased 100%. And the interaction between themselves, because most of the students are part-time students. They all have a day job, so they're doing this part-time, and they don't know each other. They only have 1 week that they come together in the beginning of the year, and then they all go to all their different places that they come from. Some of them are from Africa, some South Africa, and there are 1 or 2 others that may also be internationally based. So it was important for me to see, are they interacting, because they don't know each other like our students that see each other every day in a class setting. So they indicated that the interaction between themselves increased with about 57%. To me, it was great because it meant that my design worked in that particular instance. And then the activities or the electronic activities I gave them added value to the understanding of the concepts 100%. Which means I reached my goal with the design. And then some of the open-ended questions was, what was the most effective aspect of this module? The podcasts were posted immediately. It enables one to go through the sessions in good time. And I think that refers to the asynchronous teaching and how valuable that is, because you can then do it whenever it suits you. The way in which the module was structured was very organized. I think it is important. And we also had this webinar this morning where they spoke about planning and organization and how you structure it. And the students really appreciate a good structured module online. The SCORM packages, that just refers to the pre-recorded PowerPoints I had with the embedded electronic activities. You use the program iSpring, but you can do it in different ways. So they really liked how I integrated the formative, the different formative activities in the PowerPoints. Structuring encouraged you to learn, glossary and the quiz. Assistance through the PowerPoint presentations, and here they refer to the pre-recorded voice notes in each slide, so they listened and could read the PowerPoint. The different activities and the way of instruction, I gave them very clear instructions, because not all of them are graduates that just graduated a 3rd-year or a 4-year degree. Some of them were on the older side and not necessarily comfortable with using technology. So I had to make sure that I really give clear instructions so that they feel they understand and that they guide it and that they feel comfortable using it. I really enjoyed the assignment, and I felt that working through the legislation myself and applying it to my selected product really walked me through the world of functional foods and their place in the market, as well as how they relate to regulating bodies. And you put in so much effort, particularly putting together all the online content. You were so available via email, and I also was quite involved in the discussion forum. And we really got good discussions, and we learned a lot from each other, from all the different parts of the world, especially linked to the different legislations with regards to foods. And you really put in a lot of effort to make it personal, despite it being an e-module. And I think that's where probably good planning and structure then also comes in. So I found this infographic, which I really liked. In this, Bloom's taxonomy is integrated with technology. I find this helpful to give me ideas of the numerous electronic activities there are to choose from. And now not only to think about the 6 ways of learning, but also linking the learning to the lower or the higher order cognitive skills, which refers to the Bloom's taxonomy. The difficulty sometimes for me lies with deciding which learning type a specific electronic activity deals with. Luckily, we do not have to reinvent the wheel, so we can learn from other experts. So one can make use of these guides to make it easier to match the electronic activity with the learning type. And I tried to create a summary of the SunLearn electronic activities and how it potentially can be linked to the 6 ways of learning. It's by no means complete, and it is my own interpretation, but hopefully it can be used as some sort of a guide to assist you in choosing the electronic activities. The Division for Teaching and Learning Enhancement has provided us with great resources on how all of these activities need to be set up in SunLearn. So I hope this presentation will help you to look and think differently about choosing a particular learning activity. So I think it is important to realize that even if you already developed some of your online teaching learning activities at this point, you can still start to use Learning Designer at any point in time. It's about developing and re-evaluating and keep on developing. It really is easy. Initially, it takes a bit of thinking and planning, but after that, you only tweak and update your design. I hope I have left you with some food for thought, enough practical examples, but most important, with motivation to tackle this online teaching with the hope of enabling every learner to achieve their learning potential. I have included some references at the end, as well as hyperlinks in the presentation to all the websites, and those links then are also available in the PDF document if you want to investigate further. So please feel free to share your online experiences with regards to your electronic learning activities that you have used so far. It will be great if we can learn from each other. Thank you.